So willpower alone is never enough to get me to change my patterns, because there's a deeper unmet need that's happening beneath the surface. It requires to face off and ask these deeper questions. When it comes to making changes that last, willpower and overriding your nervous system just doesn't work. It's been proven time and time and again that if there's something that I'm doing, a decision that I'm making that happens over and over and over again, even if I try to quit cold turkey or change my behavior on the spin of a dime, it's not going to last. It's not sustainable, or at least it's much more difficult to leverage willpower when it comes to changing our natural patterning and orientation. This ultimately is a conversation about leadership, because a big part of leadership is honing and shaping and disciplining ourselves to show up as an example of something that is valuable in our community. When I show up as that example of something that's valuable in my community, it inspires others. It provides a standard for other people to measure their life up to. And collectively, it keeps us all growing in a positive direction. But how many times have you noticed there's something about your life that just, it's not where you want it to be? Easy one is you eat a lot of junk food. You binge out on ice cream, right? I'll raise my hand. I've definitely been there before. So let's say I've got this pattern of binging out on ice cream, but it's not something that I want to do anymore. The cold turkey willpower way would be to say, that's it. Starting tomorrow, I'm no longer going to eat and binge out on ice cream. And my willpower, depending on who you are and how strong your willpower is, can get me over that hump. And sometimes it's really important to be able to leverage that. But willpower alone is not enough. It's important to get curious about what is underneath that compulsion that I have to binge out on ice cream. Now, you can take your particular pattern and substitute it in for binging ice cream, right? Just leave that as blank. I have the tendency to blank, and the reason why I do this is, that's where we get to be curious. For myself, I notice at times where I would go to binge out on ice cream is when I was facing something really difficult in my life that I was afraid of, that I didn't know how to resolve, that I was intimidated by, and binging out on ice cream would give me a dopamine flush. Whatever that is for you, take a moment and ask yourself, what is the cause for this pattern I have? For nearly all of us, it's some sort of escapism, some sort of avoidance, some sort of resisting the thing that is uncomfortable, that is unknown, that is uncertain, that forces me to be and show up a different way than I'm used to or that I'm familiar with. It challenges me where I don't feel confident. So we have these different coping strategies, whether it's ice cream or cigarettes or pornography, whatever the habit is, to manage the stresses that we have and that we encounter in our lives. So back to willpower. Why is willpower not enough? I don't know if any of you guys have truly ever been addicted to something, but if you have, you know that no matter how many times you've resigned yourself and resolved yourself to, I'm no longer going to do this thing. I determine that right now is the end of this behavior. How many times have you gone right back to doing the same old thing? When the ratio of stress reaches enough of a height and your coping and management of that stress is low, it's going to create the circumstances for me to go and grab a bucket of ice cream and go to town on it. It's part of our nature. It's part of what we do. But helping that willpower component with and pairing it with an unmet need. What is the need that is not being met that I now feel compelled to substitute with a bucket of ice cream? That's where we can leverage this willpower to its best function. I first have to get really curious about what is this pattern? Why is this happening for me? Why do I keep going back to this place? What is it that I'm not choosing to face off with that I've consistently pushed forward down the road? Now, this might be a foreign concept to you, so let's just really simplify it. I have a problem, A. When problem A presents, I respond with solution B. Solution B makes me feel C. And the combination of A plus B plus C yields a result that is very familiar. I don't feel very good after I eat a whole bucket of ice cream. Sometimes I get really down on myself. I feel bad that I got to go and burn off a bunch of extra calories that I just consumed for no definitive reason. But there's always something that's produced, and I can anticipate how I'm going to feel when I take A plus B plus C. When I take the problem plus the solution and the feeling, I understand what the outcome is going to be. When I take the same problem that I'm facing in my life and I introduce a new solution, I don't know what C is going to be yet. I also don't know what the overall outcome of that formula is going to be. So let's say I take the same problem that I have in my life, and instead of going to grab a bucket of ice cream, I decide to face off with it, have an uncomfortable conversation with somebody in my family. I've never done that before. I don't know how I'm going to feel. I don't know how this individual is going to respond. It creates a high level of uncertainty, which increases the level of stress and fear and anticipation that this might not go well. And because I don't know, I can't predict or anticipate how it's going to feel, that bucket of ice cream looks a lot more tempting. So in order to choose a different action, a different B, a different solution B to add into that formula, there's a degree of taking care of myself, taking care of my body, taking care of my overall internal climate so that I have the feet to stand on and make that new choice. So say no to the ice cream requires me to take some deep breaths, have a conversation with somebody outside of my family first that gets me a little more grounded and boosts my confidence to have this bigger, uncomfortable conversation with my family member. Whatever it is, it might take an extra step that I add into the formula so that I can actually begin to change a pattern. Because otherwise, it's really easy to regress back to the A plus B plus C that gives me an overall outcome I can anticipate. If I'm feeling afraid about this thing I'm facing off with and I grab that bucket of ice cream, I'm gonna feel a little bit ashamed, but it's gonna taste so good. And for that moment, I'm gonna forget just about how challenging that thing on the horizon is. So willpower alone is never enough to get me to change my patterns, because there's a deeper unmet need that's happening beneath the surface. So if you want to actually impact change in your life, you want to show up as more of a leader and example for the people around you. Even if you just value growing and becoming a better version of yourself every single day, it requires to face off and ask these deeper questions. It takes a little extra time. It's a little bit more uncomfortable to get that level of honest. It's actually a practice to be that honest with myself that I'm eating this ice cream because I'm avoiding having that conversation with mom. That's really freaking me out, because if it goes badly, then we might not be able to talk and connect for a long time. And I don't want to hurt her feelings. I might have to get that level of honest with myself so that I can motivate myself to act from a different place. Say, you know what, ice cream, you're gonna have to wait for another day. Today, I'm choosing to step forward. So if you're one of these people who is constantly leaning on willpower, if you're one of those folks that every time the new year comes around, you make a resolution and you try to just muscle your way into waking up earlier, getting to the gym, eating healthier, etc., I'd encourage you to look a little bit deeper and ask yourself, what is the pattern here that's asking to be interrupted? And what is the need that is holding up that pattern that I'm not meeting? Because at the end of the day, it's all about coping with the stresses and adversities of life. And if you can acknowledge what your body is screaming at you about, then your body's going to be more enrolled to step forward into an uncertain path. All right, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure you tune in each and every week for our Monday morning meditations. And stay tuned, get yourself registered and signed up, because we've got Dojo coming up May 4th through 7th right here in Austin, Texas. Exactly what I'm talking about here and what we'll be talking about over the next few weeks: leadership embodiment, giving the body an experience of confidence, giving that actual movement, moving the body and putting ourselves in uncomfortable situations so we're more tolerant of the adversities that lie ahead. May 4th through 7th, right here in the dojo, getting real, doing the embodiment work. Come join us.